welcome to the Brew Crew Review Podcast, the show by fans for fans of your Milwaukee Brewers. Welcome back, Brewer fans, to the Brew Crew Review Podcast number 50-something. This is Craig. I'm joined with me by my colleagues, Vince and Scott. Hey, guys.
Hey, Craig. How are you?
Hey, everybody.
I'm a little cold here, as a lot of our Brewer fans are here in Wisconsin, and it's going to be high of about negative 25 the next couple days, so this should be lots of fun.
I have some good news on that, though. I wanted to let you guys know. Here in Las Vegas, it was like 65 today, and I had my first Leinenkugel Summer Shandy. I guess that's distributed already out here, so it's officially summer. So congratulations.
And out here in Washington, and since we're transitioning to a weather report, I'll just let you guys know that here in Washington, D.C., it's about 30 or so today. So not terribly warm, but not really that cold. There's no snow on the ground, and it was in the 40s and 50s within the last week. So not awful.
I think there will be a point at some point in Wisconsin this week that it will actually be colder than it is at Mount Everest.
Oh, wow.
Just at one given time, like maybe it's daytime there, nighttime here, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm comfortably out taking a walk and doing this podcast right now. So we're, it's not too bad out here.
And so we're assuming that you're cozied up by your warm fire or wherever listening to this podcast, or the heat of your computer screen, wherever you are listening to this podcast. But we're going to talk about the Milwaukee Brewers. There hasn't been a whole lot that's happened since our last podcast. I don't believe, as far as the Milwaukee Brewer front, except for the fact that David Stearns was promoted and given to the title, I believe, president of the club, obviously, and given an extension as well. So I guess we'll kind of start off with that as our first topic. Obviously, I don't think anyone's going to argue that this is not a smart move by owner Mark Antanasio.
No, Craig, I'm glad you let off with that. I think that it's a great move. David Stearns is a guy who's come in a relatively short amount of time. He's made the Brewers not only a contender, but we'll see what happens this year, but I would say a year in and year out contender, given the way that the roster is constructed and we're not really loaded down with a ton of awful contracts or anything. I think that the risk that was involved if we did not do a move like this was that David Stearns was going to get poached by another organization. There were some rumors earlier in the offseason that, maybe the Giants were interested in talking to him, or the Mets or other clubs, but whether those were true or not, I don't know, but I am glad that the Brewers locked him up, gave him a promotion. And I do think it also, at some point, will probably mean that Matt Arnold, who is viewed as another guy who is worth keeping within the organization, has a lot of talent, will probably be moved to the general manager position, I would guess, at some point in the next few seasons if the Brewers do want to retain him as well, kind of like what the Cubs do with Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer and other clubs do as well.
Yeah, it was definitely exciting.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I'm so glad that he's not going to, any of those other teams. Obviously, he's just done a remarkable job. Everyone on Twitter agrees, except for like maybe one or two delusional detractors. And I mean, other than that, you can't help but be really happy about this. The only thing that I really wish that I knew is terms are undisclosed. Like, I'd really like to know how long we have him, as a GM. That would be kind of a nice thing to know. But unfortunately, I just can't find it.
Well, Scott, you've got press passes, right? Why don't you just ask them?
Well, we're working on those press passes. We haven't locked it down yet. We had them before and we did a really great job. So nobody's going to make me think that we won't get them. But as of now, we're playing the waiting game.
Doesn't the decade rule apply at some point for the Brewers and their institutional memory? Thinking about our press pass issues prior to this.
Yeah, if we had any people that weren't a fan of our show within that organization, I would assume that they're all long gone by now. So
And we've got our colleague Tom Hodgecourt will vouch for us. So, anyways.
Yeah. So obviously Stearns is locked up for a little bit longer and given more power and roles here within the organization. And I think obviously there's a lot of people on board with this. Definitely a good thing to be a Milwaukee Brew fan and find that out. Now, one thing that the on-deck event just happened here in Milwaukee, and it was very well attended. I heard some rumor there was like 17,000 people that attended it, and I know that they originally sold the on-deck tickets for like $70 a piece, and I literally saw on Craigslist that they were going for about $50 a pop prior to the event. However,
Wow.
there's also been some reports that there were some issues getting people in, and sometimes it took them like over an hour to get people in, and that there was obviously very difficult to get autographs and everything. So I guess this all comes with when you get one game away from the World Series and you have such a successful season as the Brewers 2008 season was, you really bring out the fans. I think that really speaks to how much people here in Milwaukee, at least, if not around the country, Brewer fans are definitely fired up about the upcoming season, the future of the Milwaukee Brewers, and Stearns news just probably got them even more fired up. So,
Yeah.
that's definitely something. So I know one of the things that it was reported of Stearns here at the on-deck event, what is the plan with second base? And again, I think everyone thought he was kind of waiting out. There were so many second base free agents as we started the off season here. We thought we was kind of waiting for the best bargain deal as far as getting a good one and a good rate, especially after we splurged on our catcher, Yasmani Grandal with $18.5 million a year. And so, or 2.5, whatever it is, a year. Yeah. So, I think that we're probably going to hit the bargain bin here for a second baseman, but a lot of those options have now signed with other teams. I think, we're kind of concerned that we're not going to sign a second baseman, and Stearns didn't go ahead and say that, but he did allude that the plan for now is to split playing time at second base between Corey Spangenberg, left-handed hitter, Hernan Perez, a right-handed hitter, and even in the mix, Tyler Saladino, who's most likely going to be our utility infielder and our backup at short and second. So I don't know. What are your guys' overall thoughts if that's indeed, if we don't sign anyone else, to upgrade second base, and that's our plan going into the season? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I have to admit that I'm a little puzzled by it. I thought that we would definitely sign a second baseman going into the offseason. In fact, I think that most Brewer fans would have said we would have gotten a starting pitcher and a second baseman, and we've gotten a catcher. So I at this point, I'm really not going to question too much of what Stearns does, because whatever formula he's using has turned out to be successful. But I am a little puzzled that we saw really no movement of second baseman, or even conversations, it sounded like, with second baseman perhaps coming to the Brewers. And we've seen so many guys fall off the boards, within the last month. Everybody from, Daniel Murphy to Ian Kinsler to DJ LeMahieu to, it just seems like Jed Lowry, every guy that we've speculated about here on this podcast, and it seems like the national media as well has signed at this point. I guess that there still are a few possibilities out there. Marwin Gonzalez from the Astros is still available. I think Asdrubal Cabrera just signed. Yeah, Josh Harrison is still out there. So there are a couple potential upgrades, I guess, that we could, still potentially sign, and maybe the dollar amounts just, weren't there. And one thing that did surprise me a little bit that did come out of the on-deck event is that Stearns told Tom Hodgecourt, our colleague, point blank, that Keston Hiura would not be, on the opening day roster, and neither would Mauricio Dubon. So those two guys, I guess, will not be our opening day starters at second. I thought perhaps maybe a guy like Dubon at least could start the year with the team and kind of see how it goes. But I guess that's not the case either. So I don't know how comfortable I feel with, Spangenberg and Saladino and Perez, three guys kind of splitting that role. And I mean, it just seems kind of bizarre to go into the year without a for sure starter at second base when so many options were available, and not all those options signed for a ton of money.
Yeah, I think when you look at David Stern's philosophy. I'm pretty sure that he just, I don't know, runs some formula or some algorithm somewhere and just says, okay, so if we spend this amount of money, it's not going to mortgage our future, and it's going to help us get the most wins. And so, therefore, we're going to sign a catcher. And obviously, the
Right.
second baseman they were originally looking for were apparently they just weren't worth it, like money to wins ratio or whatever it may be. I still wouldn't be surprised. Like, it is funny because there was an article probably 3 weeks ago that said that the Brewers were heavily pushing for middle infield help, and now suddenly it says we're good. So obviously this is like kind of one of those things that I'm pretty sure that we just kind of leak out there and say, yeah, no, we're good, just to hope, to get us leverage, kind of dig in our heels a little bit and say, we're not going to overpay for what's out there. Having said that, I still think that, Marwin Gonzalez could be an option, I guess. But if you're looking for cheap options, Josh Harrison or even Logan Forsythe might be something that we look at. But who knows?
Well, and I'm certainly not opposed to a guy like Josh Harrison coming in. I think that he would be a definite upgrade over Spangenberg and Saladino platooning or Perez or any combination of those guys. And again, and the other issue I see is that a guy like Hernan Perez or even Saladino to a lesser extent, those guys are valuable off the bench because they can play multiple positions. They're not valuable because they're a starting second baseman. So I hate to weaken our bench by not just going out and spending a little bit of money on a guy like Harrison. I mean, at this point, I would have gone with Dozier or Scope even back for what they got for 1 year deals. That could have been a bridge year, to Hira at this point. And the other guy that is still out there we probably should mention, just because Stearns has already acquired him once, is Neil Walker. He had kind of a down year last year with the Yankees, but he did hit well with the Brewers in the second half in 2017. So maybe that's another name to be looking for as well. I think he would be an upgrade over the guys that we currently have. But I guess my preference at this point would probably be Harrison, followed by Gonzalez, and then Walker would probably be my third pick out of those guys. So I don't know. I'm a little puzzled by it, but I will say that by spending the money on Grandal, we've got the best backup catcher probably in the National League. So there's that, but we just don't have a starting second baseman.
Yeah, that makes it really rough too, because then instantly, like, Manny Pena rumors came out, and I mean, obviously, it seems like anybody who's looking still at Real Muto is still, I guess, once he gets traded, hopefully not to the Dodgers, but once he gets traded, it's pretty. I guess those teams that missed out on him are going to be calling Stearns about Pena, and it'll be interesting to see if maybe one of those teams might have a second baseman, or a pitcher that we'd be looking at. So who knows?
Right. And that's a definite possibility.
My take on it is this, I guess. I think that when we non-tendered Scope, we thought, hey, that $10 million that we were going to have to pay him, we'll use that on a different second baseman, hopefully a little bit cheaper. And I think that they thought they could get like a Daniel Murphy or a Dozier or something for that price, and I think they just didn't get them. And so while that was happening, I believe they said, hey, we didn't think we could get Yasmani Grandal for $18 million, but we can now. And he's willing to sign for one deal. We got to do this, right? And I think that's what they did. And so therefore they spent that money that they had allocated for second base on catcher. And I think the reason they did that really comes down to two things, in my opinion. And this is kind of a little bit of guesswork, but first of all, I think David Stearns has a higher value on Trey Spangenberg than any of us and most of the people who follow baseball for whatever reason. So I guess I'll say to start with that why not give him a shot? And Stearns is very rarely wrong, appears. So perhaps he's got a little gem there. We don't know. But anyway, with that being said, I think the really number one factor is that Keston Hira is going to be a factor for the Milwaukee Brewers in the 2019 season. Not at the beginning, obviously, and Vince said he's a little bit surprised at the fact that we wouldn't start the year with Gavon or Hira if indeed we had any better option. I think the reason behind that, obviously, I think, again, we can delay their RB clock and whatever, a little bit by keeping him down the minors for 2 months or whatever it would be. I guess the other guys will hold the fort down until he can be called up. And when I say obviously Dubon could fill in, but I really think it's going to be Europe because of how well he's been hitting, specifically last year in the minors. And I also want to point out that he was named the MVP of the Arizona Fall League, which is usually the last litmus test of whether or not someone's ready for the major leagues. And so I think that's a pretty clear sign that he is.
Yeah, and Dubon, I guess it shouldn't. Maybe I misspoke when I said the word surprising, because you're right. I mean, obviously the ARB clock is a big deal for a team, especially like the Brewers, who, need to be cost conscious and need to maintain, our younger prospects a certain amount of years to get the most value out of them. And so we're looking at like a June 1st-ish potential call up date for a guy like Hira if he's continuing to hit as well as he has once he gets to AAA, as he did in the other levels of the minors in the Arizona Fall League. But Dubon, he did have a major injury last year. I really think that he was on the cusp of being called up, like literally within the next couple days before he suffered a season-ending ACL tear last year. So he was hitting very well at AAA. And Scott, you can have your interns look up his batting average last year in Colorado Springs. Right, he was hitting the cover off the ball, but maybe the Brewers are being a little bit protective of him just because of the fact that he did have that major injury, and they don't want to throw him all of a sudden into a starting role in the big league club, when he hasn't played since last June, I think, was when he got hurt. So I guess that does make a little bit of sense if we think we can bridge those first few months of the year.
Dubon was hitting 343 last year with 922 OPS when he got hurt. So, bad timing.
Yeah, really bad timing, because that was during Arcia's slump, and Saladino was recalled and then sent down, and then I think it could have been Dubon, and then Saladino got called back up. And right. Saladino got hurt. So, I mean, the opportunity was certainly there for him. I'm sure that we're going to see both Dubon and Hira in a Brewers uniform at some point in 2019. How much playing time and at what positions, I guess, remains to be determined. But, I think that both those guys, if they continue to hit in AAA, are going to be called up. If nothing else, they'll be September call-ups. But I agree with you, Craig. I think they could play a role earlier in the season as well.
Good points, guys. I think we shall see, but perhaps, we could have a surprise late signing. But at this point, I actually am going to take them by the word in the fact that I think we're going to start 2019 with this as our second base crew. And, but I think really it's pretty clear that catching here as the future second baseman of the Brewers. And I'll admit that I was not that happy when the Brewers drafted him, because I didn't think that he had the power to really become a star second baseman, but I think he's proven me wrong so far. He's in the minor leagues, and I was a little bit concerned with his injuries situation when he got drafted, but I think he's put a lot of those questions to rest. And obviously he's one of the top 20 prospects in baseball, and MLB.com just named him the top second base prospect in all of baseball. So I think we got something there. So moving on, a couple things that I want to go ahead.
No, I was just going to say really quick, his defense was also, another question that fans had when we first drafted him, because if I recall correctly, he didn't play much defense his senior year of college because he had suffered an injury. And I think that's, not completely alleviated, but I think that his bat makes up for any defensive flaws, and it looks like he's improved on his defense as well. I don't think he's going to be necessarily a Gold Glove second baseman, but certainly passable, and with a bat like he's got, makes him a shoe-in, I think, for our future second baseman, unless we would trade him.
Well, if he hits really well, he could get a Gold Glove, because if you hit really well, your name's going to be out there, and people just vote for you. They're like, I don't know.
That's a good point.
That's silly. One other thing I want to discuss before we move on in the podcast here is there's been some rumors. I don't know if you guys have been reading about this, that the commissioner of baseball, Rob Manfort, has been looking into a couple of things, making some future changes to MLB, and that could affect the Brewers and their philosophy under Stearns. It's kind of concerning to me. The number one is the fact that they are looking at possibly putting some limits on defensive shifting, which I think has really been a huge key to how the Brewers were so successful with their pitching staff last year, by doing extreme shifting. And I think if there's a clampdown on that, I think that could really affect the Brewers. success, I guess. And the other one that was thrown out there really recently, and I don't know if the Brewers really were a culprit of this more than other teams, but it'll definitely affect all baseball. And that's they're thinking about putting the 10-day DL, getting rid of the 10-day DL, which they just implemented a couple of years ago, and putting it back to a 15-day DL, which kind of, it limits that roster management that, that's why Stearns like guys with options so you can, keep sending them down to the minor leagues and back up and, get guys on the DL when they might not actually be hurt and stuff like that. So, again, I'm not saying that we're a culprit of that, but I think it would affect the Brewers going forward. And, again, none of these things are for sure, but I guess what's that for your guys' take on that for a point of discussion, I guess?
I'll chime in, I guess. I'm opposed to Manfred's plan for a couple of reasons, not just because it affects the Brewers, because Rob Manfred has to look out for the best interest of the game, but more philosophically, I suppose. I think that, the defensive shift has been defense's answer to, increased offense. And we've seen it time and time again throughout baseball history where the offense has the advantage for an amount of time, the defense compensates, and it's part of the strategy of the game. So if you're a batter or a hitter, you've got to be smart enough to figure out a way to beat the shift if you want to beat the shift. I don't think that you should change the rules in order to help guys who can't figure out a winning strategy. So I really enjoy the strategic aspect of the game. I think that I am looking forward to seeing what offensive patterns develop to beat the shift over the next, say, 10 years. So I don't think it should be artificially changed by a rule. I think it should be something that the offenses, are figuring out and then adapting to and then beating, and then we'll see another defensive shift, going forward in some other way. So whether it's a new pitch or whether it's a mound change or whatever it is, I don't think that it should be artificial. I think that it should be something that is just a natural part of the game that offenses and defenses figure out. I'm also opposed to changing the 10-day DL. I think that's been really positive for a lot of clubs and for a lot of guys who suffer a tweak or a nagging injury. Over 162 game season, you're going to suffer those. Little types of injuries, maybe not bad enough to be put on the 15-day DL, but I think in this case, it's made it a lot easier for teams to give guys that little bit of rest, knowing that they can have them back in 10 days rather than 15. So I'm opposed. I think that it's healthy for teams overall to get guys who are suffering from nagging injuries a little bit of rest, and I think that it also is keeping guys generally healthier by getting them that rest when they need it, rather than trying to play through to avoid a 15-day DL stint.
All right, there's a lot to unpack here, a lot, but I'll try to go as fast as I can. First, as far as like defensive shifts go, I think that's absolutely a strategy. It's absolutely part of the game, and it would be stupid to take it away. I would think that with regards to the 10-day DL, bumping it to 15, I actually think that this might hurt other teams more than the Brewers. I think that the Brewers have done such a good job since Stearns came on to get that organizational depth in AAA, that with those people with options that we're able to call people up and bring people down. And I think that it's actually going to affect other teams that maybe they did. I'm not calling out any specific teams, the Dodgers, that had phantom injuries on their 12-man rotation that they had. So that where their 8th best starting pitcher was getting paid probably more than anyone on the Brewers starting rotation. But I mean, I think that is, because of that, I think actually that's not going to hurt the Brewers so much. What else did you have in there? I can't remember anymore. There was so much stuff.
No, those are the main two things.
The
10-day deal and the shifting, really. I mean, those are the two things that popped up that I thought, these could affect the Brewers going forward. And again, I think – go ahead.
Sorry, there was one more thing I was going to say. I actually think in the next collective bargaining agreement, just because this is starting to come to a head a lot quicker than I think people thought, which was people saying that there's plenty of good veteran free agents out there now that aren't getting jobs, or they're getting jobs at the last minute for much less than they actually hoped. I think that the MLB is going to do a job creation, and I actually think that we're going to have the DH in both leagues after the next bargaining agreement.
That could be one concession to the Players Union, because certainly the Players Union has shown displeasure, I guess would be a mild word, at the current free agent class, not getting contracts like they thought that they would. And, we've seen it last winter a bit too, and this winter has been a continuation of that theme, but it just seems like a couple of key free agents can really lock up the market for like the entire winter. I mean, we're still waiting on Bryce Harper and Manny Machado to sign somewhere, and there'll be some guys then that can, get their situations figured out. But overall, we're still left with a lot of good players who aren't finding homes because teams are choosing to go with younger, more cost-controlled, cheaper options. And the DH thing, Scott, that's definitely one way that the players' union might be appeased. Interesting.
I'm surprised it hasn't been talked about more. If it's not this bargaining agreement, I think it'll be the next one. But I'm really surprised that I haven't heard more of that in the media.
Yeah, that and franchise expansion could be the two ways that you solve that issue pretty quickly.
Las Vegas, Nevada?
No, but
yes.
Yes. I don't know that MLB wants to go down that road with expansion yet, but
they've already got the land cleared. It's right next to Rio. It's going to happen.
It's not happening.
You just want a job in baseball, but we haven't seen expansion in the major leagues since 1998 with the Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Rays. So it has been a number of years now at this point. We're talking over 20 years, which if you look in the post World War II era of baseball history, that's probably one of the longer stretches that I can think of, at least, without expansion. So they could in theory bump up to 32 teams.
Yeah. So and there's some more things, including more topics for our future podcast. Once all the free agents are signed, kind of as we move towards spring training, we can talk a little bit about what has happened to the free agent market and whether or not that's going to be a factor in the next collective bargaining agreement as well. As like something have to be done because these free agents are not getting what they feel is worth because of some of the points you made. So we'll talk about that in a future podcast. But for now, I think you guys answered the questions I had, and that regarding things that affect specifically the Brewers. So,
Craig, did you talk to our anonymous source Tom Carter about his thoughts on where and when Machado and Harper might sign? Oh, well, yeah, Tom Carter, yeah.
Well, Tom wants to be called.
I don't know, but I got that question loaded up for you guys in our Rapid 9, so we won't give that totally away. But TC, again, he asked me specifically to tell you guys not to say his whole name. And He said he actually never – he said since you guys don't understand what anonymous means, he said just don't say his name. So he said use layman's terms. I don't know what that means, but –
yeah, why are we using all these $5 words? Can we just say our great source, Tom Carter, who's anonymous?
Well, let's call him.
I don't know why Tom Carter would have to confuse, befuddle me with such a word like layman. I don't even know what that is. But anyway,
why don't we call him our anonymous eponymous source, Tom Carter?
Didn't he coach the Marlins?
Something like that.
All right. Well, we're running out of time in this podcast, so let's do our Rapid 9.
We have 9 minutes. No pressure.
All right.
Here we go. Scott, use your brain. Fast brain. Here we go.
Take your time, Scott.
Okay. First inning. Name one current free agent that you'd like the Brewers still to sign before the 2019 season starts.
What?
Vince, you better lead off.
All right. I will quickly just say but I guess not so quickly.
That's okay. I'll go first. I'll say Josh Harrison.
Oh yeah, you just took mine. Okay, I'll no, I like Harrison too, Craig. Just to be different, I'll say we get.
You can also say none because there might not be very many good ones left.
I'll go Marwin Gonzalez from the Astros, though I think it's more realistic that we trade for Starlin Castro from Miami.
Scott?
I don't know. I'll say Logan Forsythe. I don't know why.
All right. It's interesting. We're also focusing on second base, even though we just admitted that we were going to not do anything at second base. I think I'm wondering more so about our rotation, but that leads me to our second question. This might take a little time. No, it shouldn't take time. But anyway, let's name the Brewers' starting 5 rotation to open the year. Not in order necessarily, but just which 5 pitchers will be in our rotation?
I'll go Chassin, Nelson. Boy, I guess we're going to have to throw Davies in there, Peralta, and we'll say Corbin Burns. And then I think Anderson may get dealt. I don't know why I think that, but we'll see.
It's possible. Good picks. Scott?
I should have said Wade Miley. I know that. I thought you were going to say Greg for the last question.
I thought one of you guys were going to throw in a free agent we haven't signed or something. But anyway.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, I'll say Chassin and Peralta, Burns, Woodruff, and Davies.
Well, we're all going to be different. I'm surprised no one threw Keuchel in there, but no, I won't do that either. It's not happening, unfortunately. But mine will be Chassin, Chase Anderson, Zach Davies, Corbin Burns, and Freddie Peralta. But I think Peralta could get bumped for a last-minute signing, hopefully some of Wade Miley. And quick throwing out there, I know you guys probably want to discuss it, but I would have liked to have Drew Pomeranz at what the Giants got him at, but what can you do?
That's disgusting. What was it, $1.5 million?
Crazy. Incentive like 3.5, but whatever. Yeah.
Still,
just move on.
I will just say really quick, I do think Brandon Woodruff makes the team, but I think he's coming out of the bullpen. Just want to
I agree with that. All right, here we go. Then the next thing, let's make it fast. Third inning, name a team. Name either team or how much you think Bryce Harper will sign for.
Oh God!
Actually, just do the years and the contract. If you want to throw out a team, you can do that.
And escalators and.
Yeah, that's why it's.
How long?
That's why it's hard. I'll say Harper ends up in Philadelphia at this point. I don't think the Dodgers are actually going to sign him. We'll see, but I'll go Philadelphia and I'll say 6 years. They've got the money.
Okay, Scott.
I don't know. I actually was going to say Philly too, and I was thinking like.
You can still say that, Scott. We need to get going.
I mean, I'm gonna, and I'll say like I don't know, 10 years, 250. I don't know.
Okay,
Chad,
there you go. That's good.
Chad, what do you think?
I will say that it'll be surprisingly only like a 7-year contract.
Only 7. That's more than I gave him.
Come to Philly?
7 years. 7 years, $200 million with the. I'm going to say Phillies too.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the fourth inning. The similar question. Manny Machado. How many years? What team?
Okay. I think Machado ends up with a shorter deal, actually. Maybe I'm not going to call it a pillow contract, but let's call it a 3-year deal somewhere. And I don't think it's going to be the Phillies. I don't think it's going to be the Yankees. That's a great question. I actually am going to say that he is maybe the Padres. I mean, it's weird, but they spend money like nobody's business. So we'll say a 3-year deal with a lot of clauses and options to San Diego. Makes no sense.
Scott?
I'm going to say that he goes to Chicago, but not the Scrubs, the White Sox. And I don't know. I'll say like 200. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably more realistic.
Scott stole my thunder a little bit, like he always does. But anyway, I'll also go White Sox for Machado, and I'll say 6 years, $140 million. Okay.
Not the Brewers for 1 year, and then move Shaw second.
I don't even want him for 1 year.
I wouldn't want him for one game.
All right,
maybe game 7 of the LCS.
This will be the last free agent one, but Craig Kimbrell, I have no idea where this guy's going to sign. I guess just forget the contract. Predict where Craig Kimbrell will sign.
Oh God, Kimbrell will sign. Yeah, that is kind of a tough one. I mean, the Braves could really use him, and he played there, and there's some familiarity. I just don't think that they're going to have the money to sign him. But the longer he sits out there, you just never know. I'm gonna in a weird twist that he goes back to Atlanta for 1 year.
I'll say he gets a multi-year deal and goes to Boston.
Back to Boston.
Unfortunately, my pick is going to be he's going to sign a shocking 2-year high-price, somewhat deal with the Chicago Cubs. It's going to piss us off, but what can you do? Okay, with that being said, sixth inning, name the NL Central team that you think has improved the most so far this offseason. Don't have to go into detail. I'll just throw it out there.
The Reds. Oh, sorry. Wasn't my turn.
You can go first, Stearns.
Yeah, guys, you're a great man. Do whatever you want.
All right, Reds.
I'm going to unfortunately say the Cardinals is getting Paul Goldschmidt.
Yeah. I like what the Reds. I agree with Scott. The Reds have really improved, and they just got Sonny Gray for very little. And so, but with that being said, I mean, they've remade their entire rotation, and they've added. I just don't like the guys they brought out. I don't like Camp and Quigg, so I'm not going to give it to the Reds.
No.
I'll say Cardinals, unfortunately, too, just for Goldschmidt alone, unfortunately. All right,
well,
moving on.
I don't think a team making a ton of moves just to make moves is necessarily the right answer either, which is I kind of feel like what Cincinnati's doing. That being said, there was a report out tonight that they're close to landing JT Realmuto from the Marlins. That could be interesting.
That is interesting. All right, seventh inning. Scott, how much are we on time here?
We got a little over a minute, so we're kind of screwed.
Oh, okay. Well, this will be the last inning. What?
Sorry, fans.
Do you guys disagree on any of the Hall of Fame inductees, which were, of course, Mariano Rivera, Roy Halladay, Edgar Martinez, and Mike Mussina? If you agree with them all, say yes. If you didn't, name which player you didn't agree with.
Yes, I like them all.
I like them all. Edgar Martinez was a little on the fence, but I'll vote him in.
I could go either way on Harold Baines, though. You forgot to mention Harold Baines and Lee Smith being voted in by the Veterans Committee. Yeah,
that's probably a whole other discussion on the next podcast. Yeah, but I'll actually say I liked them all too. But I actually was more on the fence with Mussina than I was with Edgar Martinez. Actually, I'm glad Edgar got in. So that's a wrap, guys. Yeah. Another great podcast. We'll hopefully bring some more guests on in the future. Some former Brewers, hopefully, and other special guests. But good episode, guys, and really looking forward to spring training coming up in the Brewers 2019 season. So without further ado,
go Brewers, guys. Stay classy. Give us a follow on Twitter.
Go Brewers.
Go Brewers.